Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are now moving on to our color plan. Now we are not coloring our final. So at this stage, that final draft that we just drew all nice and pretty disappears and goes away. We don't see it anymore. That's not what we're coloring. We are coloring the thing that looks exactly like our final draft. We are coloring our rough draft. Because once we start putting markers on our final draft, there is no going back. There is no changing your mind. There is no planning. You just have to go with what you got. So that means with the color rules that we have to follow, you want to kind of have a time to plan. Just like we had a time to brainstorm and plan for all the other stages, color is the same. So we want to take our time to figure out what we're going to do with our final draft. So now one of the things you have to think about is every single thing on here should have a color, even if that color is white. And white is a color. You can use it. But there are two rules when it comes to color. One is the rule that's already kind of sitting over here, is that we need a balance of colors. What this means is that anywhere where you use a color, you're going to have to use it somewhere else. Now the exception to this rule is going to be that you also need to have contrast. Because if I make my background boxes black and red, and then I make my needle black, what's going to happen, class? You're right. This is going to blend in and you're not going to be able to see it. So kind of, I can show you back up here. So if I make my background black and then I make my object black, suddenly my object disappears. We don't want this to happen. We want all our objects to stand out from our background. So what we're going to do is we're going to plan our colors, and we're going to make sure that our background colors are contrasted. They're not being used anywhere else. So first I'm going to figure out all my foreground colors, and then I'm going to go back and figure out my background colors. So now one thing that you do need to realize is that you do not have to use the real colors of objects unless they become unrecognizable without them. Now the Xbox symbol is green and gray, and I think that that's pretty important that it's green and gray. So I am going to draw that X on that Xbox symbol green. But that means I need to use that green somewhere else so that it's balanced. So maybe I use the green on the thread coming through the needle. So now I've got green at the top, green at the bottom. Once you've used a color twice, you can put that marker away. Do not put that marker away or stop using that color until you've figured out where it's going to be used across the page. So then if I use my gray, I gotta find the gray, there it is, and I use my gray here, that this marker's dying a little bit, but it's okay. This version doesn't need to be colored pretty. It just needs to figure out what colors you're using. So if this is gray, I need to use gray up here. Now a needle is also gray, so that kind of helps me there. So that balances that. Now, then I have the pattern inside my letters. Now remember, the pattern that I chose to use was this kind of crisscross pattern. So that means there's two colors that I need to use in my letters. So maybe I'll do, and I'm not even going to draw the pattern in, I'm just going to kind of put the dots in so that I know that some of the dots are going to be that color, and maybe let's make some of the dots. No, I don't really like it. Let's try it. And I don't like that one. So I'm just going to take my pencil and cross that off so I know that that's not. Maybe I try, ooh, I kind of like that combination. So then this is the good one. So then I do a little bit of that, kind of all the way across my name, so I know that my name stays the same colors. If you want your name to change colors, that's okay, as long as your colors are balanced. So if I say, want to do both the dark purple, maybe I want to do the dark purple every other letter. So I put it in every other letter so that I know that that color is balanced. And then I do the dark blue in the other letters so that when Mrs. Jesser checks mine out, she knows that the blue, the purple, and the light purple are all going to be used all the way across. So they balance themselves. As long as your name is nice and big, it will balance itself. Then I need to pick this symbol. Now luckily, this symbol is big enough that it goes from one side of the page to the other all the way across. So it's going to balance itself. If that wasn't the case, I'd have to use a color that I was already using. But because my symbols are nice and big, they're going to balance themselves. This particular one is going to balance itself. So let's make it light blue. So then I do my light blue. It doesn't have to be neat. Now if I look at all those, and I kind of like all those, so let's leave it like that. If I decide I wanted to change, if I say I didn't like that light blue and I wanted it to be something else, you can always kind of draw yourself a little arrow and say this is going to be this, so that we know. This is perfectly fine for a color plan. Changing your mind during this process is why we're doing this. So don't feel like you have to go with the first color you put on your paper. Now, for my background, one, I don't have to color I didn't even draw the whole background, so I don't really have to color in the whole background. I just have to figure out what I like. So maybe I decide oh, remember this, and this time it was that pattern that was kind of like whoop, swoop-a, swoop-a, swoop, like that. So maybe I decide that I want to do one set of them black with white dots and one white with black dots. So white with black dots, black with white dots. Now, white is a color. I can leave that white, and if you're going to leave a section white, unless you're doing something like a baseball that has to be white, a good place to leave some white as a color is your background, just because it'll take you a little less time to color. But if I decide that I don't like black and white and I want to do, let's see, but see, I didn't use black anywhere else, so I have to find a color that I didn't use anywhere else. I didn't use orange, so maybe I'm going to do orange dots and orange here. And I'll try that out. And okay, so I like that, so then that's good. All my colors are balanced. My background colors are contrast. They're not being used anywhere else. My name the pattern has a color. All the details in my symbols have colors. If I needed to say, just like I did here, the line and the X, I needed to pick a color for that because I couldn't have gray on gray. For the same reason you can't have a black object on a black background. You can't have a gray line on a gray object. So any detail you add needs to have a color, and that color needs to be balanced. Now, if I wanted to, say, outline my name in black, I can't do that because I'm using black in my background. If I outline my name in black, suddenly my name is going to go in. So if I want to outline my name in a color, I have to pick another color. Now there are some nice dark colors, or I could even, because I'm using all blues and purples, I could even outline my name if I felt like I needed to outline my name in something. I could outline it in another color. As long as I use that color all the way across, or that color is being used somewhere else, that color will balance. So the two rules to doing your color plan are that you need to balance your colors so that they are across the page from each other, and you need to contrast your background. So your background colors cannot be used anywhere else but your background. So, time to complete your color plan.